This is Dr. David D. Schein for this special edition of Saving America. We're introducing a new weekly update to prepare our Saving America to move forward into a new generation and get things going in a different approach. Here are some of the top stories from this last week. First of all, 80th anniversary of D-Day. Fortunately, there's still a small handful of veterans who served on that day. It's a very important day where the Allied forces, despite insignificant odds, overwhelmed the very fortified German position in Normandy. I had the opportunity several years ago to go to Normandy and to look at the cliffs and look at the embedded positions of the Nazi forces. This was not an easy thing to do. And there's a darn good reason why the people that participated in that are called the greatest generation. And the question that comes up is, can this generation rise to the level of prior generations? Because we are still in a very dangerous world, and we may need this generation to rise up and accomplish things. So I'm hopeful, but I think we need to do a lot to get our society back in order. Unfortunately, Joe Biden, as often, flubbed his D-Day celebration appearance, and not unexpected given his consistent series of gaffes and stupid statements and things like that. Also this week, Fani Willis has been put on hold by the Georgia appeals courts, which are going to take another look at whether she can actually prosecute the bogus Trump charges in Atlanta. So that's going to be kind of interesting. And then, speaking of Joe Biden, a desperate Joe Biden who knows he's behind in the polls, knows that illegal immigration is a major concern, suddenly does something that he claimed he couldn't do, which is to put some limits on illegal immigration. Now, I want you to think about that for a second. This is a limit on illegal immigration. Shouldn't illegal immigration be zero? Shouldn't it be zero? 2,500 people a day translates into 2 million people over a year or two. And we've already got an estimated 11 million illegals in this country. When will it stop? Do not be fooled if you're one of the few remaining Biden supporters. This does not do anything to stop illegal immigration. If anything, it's accelerating because people know that Donald Trump, who's likely to be elected, will put a stamp down on this situation and hopefully do it within a few hours of taking the presidency, hopefully in January of 2025. Fascinating story when the media gets to eat crow. As you know, I call them the slopstream media. It used to be called the legacy media or the major media or something like that. We all know who it is: NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, and so forth. But in any event, all of them and the social media idiots tied in with them tried to block stories regarding the Hunter laptop. Well, it turns out that in prosecution in Delaware of Hunter Biden for criminally buying a gun while an addict, the prosecution has introduced the famous Hunter laptop and have authenticated it, which means that all of those media sources and the social media that followed along were wrong. And so much for that famed Russian disinformation was the source of the Hunter Biden laptops. Regarding Trump, hey, he's hanging in there. He's not yards and yards ahead of Biden. It still remains to be seen what will happen. I am predicting that the Republican convention, which is going to be in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which interesting location, given that Wisconsin is not exactly a Republican stronghold, should go quietly. The Democratic convention, on the other hand, is going to be in Chicago. And I find it fascinating that in a year where there are most likely to be massive protests during the Democratic National Convention, it's being held in Chicago, where there were massive problems in 1968. Supposedly, the police are gearing up to make sure things are not repeated. Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. So in any event, nothing too exciting. We also had good old Dr. Fauci testifying about the whole COVID mess and where the virus itself came from. And as usual, he's smarty pants, but I think he's too smart for his own good. I do not believe him. I do not believe anything that he says at this point. And it was kind of interesting because he essentially admits that the 6 foot rule that we all had to stay 6 foot away from people was something that was dreamed up. It doesn't seem to have a scientific basis. Now, I love the 6 foot area around people. I would like to keep that personally because I am germ phobic, and many of you know me in person, know that. And so I love having that 6 foot space, no hugging. If I could avoid shaking hands, I would. So I think it's kind of interesting. So I don't really have a problem with the 6 foot spacing, but the concept that it had some scientific basis apparently is not there. Speaking of testifying, we've got Merrick Garland testifying. And if there was ever someone who deserves to have their bar card yanked, you're not a licensed attorney if you do not belong to at least one state bar association. I'm proud to say I'm an active member of both the Virginia and the Texas bars and have been for many years. But one of the ways that you discipline people who are not good attorneys is you take their bar card away. And I think Merrick Garland has earned that dishonor. So in any event, I doubt that'll happen because of politics, but something that ought to be looked into. I am an undisguised supporter of Israel. I am not Jewish, but I don't believe you have to be Jewish to support our only true ally, the only democracy in the center of the Middle East. And I do believe that the only way for Israel to persist and survive is to get rid of Hamas. And so I do support their efforts in Rafah to wipe out the last stronghold of Hamas. I am, like any normal human being, sorry to see that there are domestic casualties, but of course, the reports are very hard to decipher. And the population there did elect Hamas to be their representatives and have conspired with them. One thing that's not often reported about the horrors of October 7th, 2023 was the fact that there were a bunch of civilians, not just Hamas, involved in that. Our key story of the weekly summary is the election in Mexico. My recent F grade for the current president of Mexico, Obrador, I was a little hopeful that someone better would be elected. Unfortunately, this was not to happen. Mexico elected its first female president. Congratulations on that. But she is a socialist committed to carrying out the current president's policies. Note that 30, I'll read this, 30 local candidates were killed in what has been described as cartel-orchestrated bullets before ballots, violence sweeping the country. Mexico has gone from a potential first world country to just another banana republic in just the last few years. This is a horrendous situation. Joe Biden has a stake in this because by opening the border, he has allowed these cartels to make billions of dollars, which is flowing into the Mexico economy and turning these cartels into world force actors. I believe that in addition to sealing the U.S.-Mexico border, there will be further military action required. While I don't mean to being disingenuous about Mexico's sovereignty as a country. The reality is it is a country out of control, and the United States may need to use its military and strategic operations to take out the worst of the cartels, and then perhaps the Mexican government can get on board and take out what's left. But I don't see the Mexican government doing it, and it does represent a strategic terrorist threat to the United States. So Claudia Sheinbaum is the name of the new president of Mexico. She'll take office October 1. This sadly is another setback for Mexico and the United States. And I encourage Americans to not buy Mexican products and not travel to Mexico because it is not a safe country. This is Dr. David D. Schein for the special edition of Saving America. We welcome your feedback, especially on our new concept of a weekly review. We are also seeking sponsors and advertisers. Please feel free to recommend us to others who might want to sponsor a positive American show. And of course, as always, we invite you to subscribe on our various platforms.